Thank you for being here today in our session on ArcGIS Instant Apps, Best Practices for Customizing Your Web Apps. My name is Krista Morales, and I am joined by Ian.
Hi, Ian Wittenmeyer. We're both product engineers on the Instant Apps team. Can you guys hear us okay? Cool.
So in the back? Okay. We'll try to speak up.
Did anyone see the plenary today?
Yeah, nice. How many of you are familiar with instant apps? Okay, good amount. Is there anyone that today in the plenary or this session is the first time where you're really exploring instant apps? By a show of hands? Okay, great. That's awesome. Well, welcome. We're excited to show you. This is technically an intermediate, but we do have an introduction to instant apps in addition to what we talked about today. So we're happy to answer any questions at the end if there are additional questions about the product. But we'll jump in. Again, I'm sure, like you've heard in every other session you've attended thus far, please share your feedback in the app for this session. We do use it. It is important for us to know how you feel and if you'd like to continue to hear about these topics. Can check that out. And now to our agenda. So like I mentioned, we will do an overview of ArcGIS Instant Apps, the product, what our purposes are, what our functions are, things like that. Then we'll talk about building apps or our apps for audiences, talking about our different templates and who they support, the stories that you can start with when thinking about which template to choose to build a web application. We'll move on to talking about how maps have purpose. That really, we'll explore configuring your map as a central part before you move from web map to web app, and what you can do in the web map to really utilize our templates and help you there. Then we'll move into customization and configuration. So really, we'll set the foundation of what instant apps are, what templates we have, who are they used, and how you can create it, and then talking about how you can refine your app to meet these goals that you might have. And lastly, we'll finish with our conclusion and answer any questions that you all might have. So our overview of ArcGIS Instant Apps. With Instant Apps, you can quickly create web maps that make interacting with your maps and data easy. We are a no-code option for app creation. And then it's also on the premise that this is supposed to be quickly finished so that you don't spend too much time having to build a custom solution when there's something out of the box that might benefit you. We are available in ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. We have over 20 purpose-driven templates designed to complete the user experience for web maps. We'll talk more about this, but our solutions that we offer include templates for data editing, data collection, data visualization, among many other options. And so we also, as you can see, we're quick to configure, it's interactive. We have an option for making your apps multilingual very easily, which we'll demo later on in today's session. We are accessible. We follow some accessibility standards that we'll also highlight in today's session. All of our apps are meant to be used on mobile devices as well. They format to any device. And then we also have options for usage tracking through Google Analytics if needed. You can think of our templates with 4 main purposes. Now, these 4 categories are, let's think of them as dotted lines as opposed to solid lines. There are a few templates that fit into these multiple categories, but when we think about what we're doing as the end goal. That might be showcasing a map with essential tools. It might be allowing viewers to interact with your data, providing public information, and displaying a variety of features and content types. All of these can be achieved with one template or multiple templates within the same app. So I know that was a lot of information, especially for those of you who haven't had a lot of opportunity to explore instant apps, but we're gonna jump into demos throughout the day that will better explain kind of to set this foundation more. Again, the instant app is meant to complete the user experience. So you have your web map created in Map Viewer, in Pro, or anything like that, and with that web map, you can easily push it up into instant apps, giving you a way to have a web application that can be accessible through the web. Each template our configuration process and experience is consistent across the different templates. And we have created different templates that help to support all your needs. We are an out-of-the-box template and web app, so that means that we don't have the support for a lot of custom coding. We do have a little bit of support, but for the most part, the purpose of templates and web apps is to be out of the box and available for anyone who doesn't know how to code or doesn't need to create their own solution. So now we'll go ahead and talk about our audiences for our applications and our different templates. So we can think of one focus when we're deciding on what app to share or what template we want to use. We can think of someone needing an app that is workflow-driven motivation. That means that they are usually shared internally within their organization, and they have a defined workflow. I need an app that I can edit data from, or I need an app that I can collect data and review it. Not all of our templates meet this, but we have quite a few. So these templates, public notification, manager, sidebar, and attachment viewer, all we would consider created for workflow-driven audiences. I'll go ahead and demo one of these at the end of this section to give some better understanding and context, but just in the form of what templates work for our workflow-driven audience, it would be these. Then we can think about information-driven motives. So we need an app that informs my community with different information. We want to give tools for my end user to explore this information, to share it out if they need to, and they can use a lot of different tools alongside that. So we have templates that support charts, numeric time sliders, sketch tools, bookmarks, and filters. You can then also, we have the export tool where you can share and export your map along with pop-ups and the legend. A few of these examples are Countdown, which helps to browse a geographical listicle based on a statistic map. We have an interactive legend template, which explores patterns and relationships. We have Atlas, which was demoed in the plenary today, where you saw it was a collection of curated maps and layers. Portfolio, which is diverse resources within one app. And then Insets, we also saw that in the plenary today. And Chart Viewer, if you have charts from your map that you need to highlight alongside the map itself. Lastly, we have results-driven motives. This is usually for the general public. It's for community data contributors, and as well as giving answer or proximity-based questions. So again, today in the plenary, we demoed the zone lookup. It's saying I want my community to understand which electricity provider works for their address. The end user can go in, search their address, and easily that first pop-up shows, this is my address, this is who is my electricity provider, and they can have that available. It also provides, these templates provide very specific information, so they're able to gather directions, they can export the data as a PDF or CSV, and they can submit reports and get feedback. So there are also templates for reporting workflows. Those templates include Nearby, Zone Lookup, and our Reporter template, which if you are familiar with the crowdsource Reporter app for configured apps, Reporter is the 4x version of that. So let's go ahead and look at a few of those in practice. We'll start with public notification, which was in the results-driven section that I mentioned. Public notifications allows the end user to go in and create a list of the data that they see in their map and export it to mailing addresses, is one of our most common use cases. So you can imagine that this is a map of Charleston, and these red arrows are indicating road closure. Oh my goodness. Sorry, don't know how that happened. Thanks for telling me. Can I go like this and then like... Sorry, please hold. Okay, here we are, public notification. So here we have a map of road closures in Charleston. The red lines are the roads, the lines are the roads. If they're closed, they're indicated in red. And here we see all these orange dots are addresses. Say I work for the city and I want to inform the community and the people living around these road closures that their roads are going to be closed. So it's not for emergencies now, but for public information to keep them informed. I can go ahead and create a list and either use an address from the search, or I can drop a point. And I can say, okay, in this most southern area, we have quite a few road closures planned. I want to let them know that there might be delays. All the people living in this area, they might be delays. So I'm gonna set this right here, that point there, and then I'll turn on my search distance, which will create a buffer of 0.2 miles around that area, and I can bump it up. Let's say I want everyone to know within half a mile, maybe within a full mile, 1 kilometer. Okay, I want everyone to know within 1 kilometer. So that's quite a lot of features selected here. That means that 2,800 addresses are going to be affected by these road closures. If I wanted to, I'm gonna say South Road Closures, name my list, and then my goodness. This is so fun. I'm so sorry. Let's go one. Okay. Press done. My list here is created. I can edit and refine that selection if needed to. Let's say I want to remove everyone on this side of this street, on the northern side of this street. I want to remove the majority of those addresses. I can refine that list, and then I can go ahead and export. I can remove this. I'm going to change my formatting to 20 and export. And using public notification, I can quickly get all of those addresses into an address format where the city could then print that using the print label features and send an email note, or send a mailing notice to everyone saying, our roads are closing, please expect a delay. So that's public notification. It gives notifications to the community. Our other example for information-driven motives is portfolio. Portfolio is one of our templates where you can embed other information within. We start with an introduction window, which gives context to our web application. From here, we have a website embedded in one tab, which gives information. Then we see the tabs on the left, the accordion. And you can embed numerous content within a portfolio. So we have the first tab is a website. This here is a zone or a nearby app. So this is another instant app embedded into portfolio. We have an ArcGIS survey this isn't survey. We have a survey app embedded. So portfolio gives us a way to share multiple pieces of information with our community, whether that's videos, embedded websites, or other instant apps. You can easily put that all into one application and one URL using Portfolio. Another view of Portfolio is our tabbed view. So if you don't like the accordion style of it, you can use the tabbed view, as well as this play button to move through automatically like you would with a slide. Again, just giving additional information to your end users, whatever that information is that you need to share. Here we have an embedded attachment viewer, which is one of our templates to view attachments of a location embedded into a portfolio. Lastly, we'll go ahead and look at our reporter app. Like I mentioned, this is the second generation of the crowdsourced reporter. Individuals can come in, and in this, people are reporting safety concerns in their community. Now we can see that there's already existing concerns in my map, and they all are listed to the left. I can see that some people have thumbs up and agreed with that. We can also go ahead and sort the existing safety concerns by newest, oldest, or highest voted. If I look at my highest voted, I can open it up and I see that the description, when it was submitted, there's a comment. Someone was able to come in and comment and say they agree with it, as well as we can report a safety concern as the end user as well. So you can see what other people have reported, you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, and you can create your own safety concern in Reporter. These are each examples of different types of motive-based template and apps that we offer. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Ian, who will talk about map configuration.
Thanks, Krista. I actually was reminded of this case study that we just recently published. If you want to check it out, it's how the Oregon Department of Emergency Management used Portfolio to deliver information to the public. So they have them up on the center in their or up on the wall in their operating center. So they embed dashboards, maps, apps, lots of information. So if you're interested in more about how you can use Portfolio, this is a useful case study to check out. Oops. Sorry. Okay, I like to think of this as my public service announcement section of it. So when we're making maps or applications, we need to think about the audience that Krista mentioned, and we've kind of divided those up into three audiences. You know, the workflow driven, which tend to be colleagues, the information driven, which I think of as the interested public, and then the results driven, which I tend to think of as the affected public. So someone who needs to look at the map and make a decision. But really, to go along with that, we have to have our map with a clear defined purpose. And the functionality that's in a lot of our instant apps is driven at the layer level. So your map needs to be functionally ready. Layers drive functionality, like whether or not it's editable, if it has a pop-up, a filter, whether it's time aware. The layers drive even just simple things like that we tend to take for granted, like the attribute information that's going to tell the person in South Florida if they need to evacuate. You want to have purposeful cartography. So you want to have your base map give context without being a distraction. And then your layers are going to have purpose when they're fulfilling their role. So are they the lead of the play, or are they just a supporting actor? One of the things you can think about within this context as a sort of general rule, at least in my experience, it's better to have a lighter base map and then have more colorful or bolder cartography on the layers. If you like dark base maps, that's fine. You just would reverse that paradigm. So the darker the base map, your layers would be a little bit lighter. We also want to have a clear message inside the map. So titles, supporting text, information to orient your reader. We want to take the database names that systems give us and turn those into useful information that an actual human can read. And then same thing with the legend. We want to use simple words that are clear and describe information in real words. And then lastly, the pop-up is, at least in my opinion, one of the most important things possible, because in our apps, it really drives that information delivery. So it's the most specific information that your map has to deliver to its reader. And you want to use it to ensure that your message is delivered. Sometimes if you're not the subject matter expert, it's useful to sit with the subject matter expert and the map and say, why is this important? Write down what they say and then try to make the pop-up reflect that. The item page. I think we saw Atlas in the plenary. Any of our apps that use groups or show multiple maps or apps, a lot of the information comes through from the item page. So don't slack on filling out the item page. Make sure that they're clear, thoroughly documented. This supports discovery. It builds credibility in your audience and the people that are going to use your items. So that's very important. And then I guess I title this a few words on restraint. We've seen in usability studies over the years that if a person's a little more tentative, they get overwhelmed by too many tools. If someone's a little bit more engaged, they can get distracted by too many tools. So try to look for things that fit the purpose of your map and really don't deliver much beyond that. So think of the 1 to 5 things that you want to convey through the map and have the functionality support that. I think a lot of us as GIS people, we want everything in our application. We want to be able to do anything because that's the world we live in, but most of our users don't live in that world. So consider removing unnecessary things from the map. And in the demo, we'll look at some of the ways you can even go beyond the defaults with scale level, map extent, and locator. Okay, so this demo is going to be customizing with constraints. Before I get to that, this is a bad example of an item page. This item information score is kind of useful. It tells you what the most, what the top improvement would be. So this is the map that we're going to look at today, and you can see my item information score is high because I spent a little bit of extra time documenting this. So the map we're going to look at is, for the interested public. Sometimes your objective can be really simple. I just wanted to make a map that was sort of inspired by a cool historical map that I saw. This one is data from the Harvard GIS Dataverse. It's public domain, and it shows provinces during the Tokugawa period in Japan. So I slanted the map a little bit, so you can see it's a lot of these historical maps show Honshu in a little bit more of a horizontal position, so I tried to replicate that. So this one, if you zoom out, there's really the bulk of the map is essentially irrelevant to most of my users. So we'll deal with that in a moment. We want to make sure that the pop-ups for features like this coastal extent, which is really just a ripple effect that I added, are turned off. So I'm going to turn off the pop-up for that. Again, removing access to extraneous information is one of our goals today. I spent a lot of time with different layers here, so there tend to be a lot of layers in this, more than I would put in a normal map. But some of them are driving effects like the mountainous terrain and the ripple effect. So I think for my purposes, I'm going to keep those in there. But what I want to do next is take this map and make a instant app with it. So my objectives are pretty simple. I've got some bookmarks, and I want to just share the map and let people explore it. So I'm going to choose Create Instant App, and I'm going to pick our basic application. If the internet cooperates. And we went by that really fast, but all the tags and item information came over from the web map. And we enter into our builder. If it's your first time, there are onboarding messages that can walk you through the configuration. We default to putting you into express mode, which is kind of a wizard step-based process. So the first step is pick your map. I've already done that. The next step is to set up some of the tools that give you information about the map. So I want to add a header. And then because my legend's not super useful, I'm going to turn that off. Let's see. I think I'm good on that page. I want to, so by default, all of the locators in my organization are detected by the configuration. I don't need most of those, so I'm just going to remove those. And then since I only care about Japan, I'm going to take the world locating service and I'm going to configure it with a country code so that all of the suggestions are only given to me, all the suggestions are from Japan. So I'm good on that step. I think the layout is fine. Then lastly, I'm going to exit express mode. Because there's a few things that I want to do that aren't necessarily needed by every map. So in Express setup, we try to give you the essential considerations. And what I want to do here is I want to apply some constraints to the map. So I showed the full extent, it's global, and there's not a lot of useful information. So I'm going to configure what's called a navigation boundary. And what this does is it lets you pick a default map extent, which I'll set here. And then if I turn on the navigation boundary, this will apply a constraint so that the center of the map is not going to be able to leave that box. By default, we have it match with the map view. That works extremely well in cases like this where I want to show the full extent of the country, and I want to allow people to go in but not zoom out. So you can see it set the scale to the country level, and this one doesn't have a lot of detail at the lower levels of the zoom, so I'm going to constrain those. And then I like the way that it's rotated. I'm going to turn off the ability to rotate the map. I'm going to save that, publish it. And then we'll launch my configured app, and we'll test it out. So if I wanted to search, you can see everything is constrained to Japan. I can navigate through the bookmarks to the different places. These all came through from my web map. But what I can't do is I can't zoom out. You can see the ability to zoom out is blocked. So I can't see that extremely big world that this map lives within that's not really useful to my users. And we used to call that the Everglades problem, because in South Florida, people would kind of be in Miami and all of a sudden they'd end up in the Everglades. And so we try to provide like a nice safe sandbox for people to explore. So I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Krissa. Oh, one last thing. If you're interested in map tips, check out this blog, Polish Before You Publish, 10 Tips for Tidying Web Maps. It's a couple years old, but it's still really, really great information on how to take your map and kind of focus it on what's most important.
Great. So now we'll go ahead and move back into talking about customizing and refining your app. So Ian walked through the basic configuration in Express mode. We'll go ahead and look at some other options in full setup mode, as well as what that process looks like for a different app. So we have two different configuration experiences, like I mentioned. We have Express, which is your most essential. That allows you to enable tools and configure a few options to get you up and running with a web app quickly. And while our whole process is quick, it's faster than the longer quick option, which would be our full setup mode. This is going to show you tools that you can decide if you want them in. They might not be essential, but maybe for your use case. And you'll see that on the Express mode, you just go through those steps of you're walking through the steps. First with full setup mode, it's a tabbed experience where most of those sections have additional sections that you can open up. And we also have tooltips. We have search for the setting, which I'll demonstrate soon. And we have a getting started panel, which if for some reason you're in that first experience and you just want to skip all that onboarding messaging that came up, like what Ian mentioned, you skip it and you exit out of it and then you say, wait a second, I actually needed that. You can go ahead and click on our get started and all that information will be provided there. Now, when it comes to customization for instant apps, I know we talked a lot about that, we are an out-of-the-box app, so what does it look like for customization? You still have options. You're going to have, most of these options are surround our About section, our interactivity, and theme and layout. In About, we provide tools that give context to your app and data. In interactivity, this is where you have the opportunity to enable tools to help navigate your map and the data. And then with theme and layout, this is where we are able to change theme colors, add logos, and change the position of tools if you need it for a specific reason. Within our About section, which we'll look at all of this in real time. But this is where we see things like our app title. You can edit, even if you, in Ian's example, he published from a map in Map Viewer to Basic directly to from our homepage. And he mentioned that the web map's title was carried over into the app creation. Well, let's say we need a different app from the title of our web map. You can easily change that within our About section. We also have our introduction window, which can be configured. We saw that in a few of the apps that I showed earlier, where you can give additional onboarding messaging if you need any specific instructions on how to use your app, or you can just give information about the data within the app itself, as well as a cover page. And we haven't looked at the cover page yet, but we will. And the cover page kind of functions in the same way that you can think of the cover of a book. It's you just want an introduction, maybe with an image or a button to your book. Once they open up the book, then maybe you give them the preface, which would be the introduction window. And then you open up and start chapter 1, which would be viewing the app itself. In our interactivity, most of our templates are the configuration is broken up into these 4 sections. Once you open up that section, there are more tools specific to exploring and navigate. That would be like bookmarks, that would be layer lists, stuff like that. Modify might be something where if you, with that public notification or with Reporter, when you selected a point, it highlights it. Maybe that color of highlighter doesn't work with your data, so you could modify the selection color here. You could say, my data is black points. I don't want a dark color. I want it to be yellow selection color. So that's something that we can modify within our modify. Share is going to be, do you want to share it? So do you want to be able to share just the copy link? Right, I just want to have a copy link, send it out. Or do I want the option for my end users to be able to share within Twitter or within X, Facebook, LinkedIn, there's our social sharing option that people can click that button and it automatically opens that app in a share component of another social sharing site. And then search. We can configure our search to use a locator or a layer list like what we just saw. In theme and layout, as I mentioned, all options support changing the theme, which we'll look at. We have dark mode and light mode supported in all of our apps, as well as the color that you would see in our header or buttons. And then you can import a logo and change most of the tools in our position manager. We also want to talk about our accessibility options within Instant Apps. When choosing a theme and selecting from the preset theme or creating your own custom theme, there is a color contrast accessibility standard that we show that these colors together provide the right contrast to be accessible for your app. If it does not pass, you'll see the red X, and you'll see that level at which it doesn't pass or it does pass. So this helps to make sure that all of your apps are accessible for your community. We also have one of our options. You can configure our keyboard shortcuts. This is a button that your end user can open the keyboard shortcut menu, and they can view what those shortcuts are to navigate the map with the shortcuts. And then lastly, we have support for alternative map description. This provides app authors the ability to craft a text-based description of their map, and it's read by a screen reader when the map is in focus, which gives screen read users an alternative way to understand the map. So it's very important, we know, to be accessible and all of these meet that standard. So let's go ahead and, all right. I don't know why this isn't working. Okay, let's go ahead and, look at that. Okay. I know we briefly touched on the homepage. I just want to give a quick introduction so that we can look at what it looks like from our Instant App homepage. Here this is the Instant App homepage. It can be accessed like what we saw with Ian from the map viewer and create app. It can also be accessed in this app launcher here. It's one of these little chiclets that you can open. And all of our templates are displayed. Again, we have over 20, and it can be a little overwhelming. We understand when you see all of these and you're not sure which meets your need. What you can do is we have these suggestions that are workflow based. So if you say, I want to provide public information, and then you think about what type of data you want to share, let's say graphic and statistical, and I have time-enabled data. As you can see, it slowly filters down based on the information that you provide. Or another option for choosing a template that works for you is our search app capability. Here are a few common searches. I can select time, and I see these are the 6 templates that support time. And even so, if I don't even know what to look up, I don't know what's possible in Instant Apps, we have this linked matrix of our capabilities. So when you open it up, and this is up to date for every release, when you open it up, we see on the left our tool, what tool is available, and on the top we see which template is compatible with that tool. So when you're building an app, if you need something very focused and I need my template to support the floor filter, I need my app to support floor filter, you have a few options here, but not all of our apps support all of the functionalities. But this is a good place to start, especially if you're new and you need to know. You don't want to build a whole app just to have to start over because it doesn't have the capability. So now let's look at those customizations when it comes to our zone lookup template, which is one of our more focused templates that provides information to the user. Within our map, we're in full setup mode here. So a few refinements like what we can do and what Ian did was set our map area here. If I zoom out, you can see that it's at a different area than what I want. I've already configured it in that same configuration that Ian showed earlier to set my home view for what I want. In my About section here, for zone lookup, the introduction window pops up on the side panel. However, I could open it as an introduction window if I wanted something different here, and I wanted that to keep that separate. For now, I'm going to keep it in this panel, but if you needed to do any additional onboarding and give any additional context, you could easily add it, and that's added to our side panel. Here we have our shortcuts menu and our text alternative for the map, which I mentioned when talking about accessibility. I could come in here and give information about what my map is. Oh. And it can, I can't spell. And it can be easily accessible for screen readers. In my shortcut menu, I'll enable it here, and my app users, my end users, can come in and they can know exactly what controls needed to navigate the menu if they only are using a keyboard. Now we'll look at the cover page, which, as I mentioned, this is what it would look like now. With the cover page, it covers the entire app, and this is all editable. We can include a title, and you can see that we can change the color. We can give it, there's a lot of customization options here. If I wanted to make it specific to branding or anything like that. And the end user can then enter, and they have a shield page before they open up their template. And that's all customizable by the app author. This tab right here is going to be more specific to your template that you're using. So because zone lookup is a focused template, you have more options specific to this functionality. Like, again, what type of features I want returned in my results. And we see all of my layers are included. I only want one layer included. So this is where we configure the data specific, is I included just the electric territories, and that is returned in my results. In interactivity, again, we have that explore, modify, share, search, configure. We'll walk through each of them. You see that explore, we have all of these functionalities and tools that you can enable. Within modify, this is where we can select that fill color or select an outline color and change that based on what we need for our data. So you can see it changes dynamically in the map preview. Share, as I mentioned, we can include, right now it's all those options. You can limit them to only copy link if you don't want your end users to be able to share to social media sites, or you can also include embedded options. So now if you need to embed this if you need your end user to be able to embed this as the app author, you can control how they can share and what capabilities they can share with. In theme and layout, as I mentioned, we have light mode and dark mode for our apps, which change. You can select from a drop-down list of fonts if you need to change to a specific font. And then we also have a selection of preset modes. So we have them, but if you have a shared organization theme and logo, you can select that and it auto-populates with your organization's theme and logo, which is configured in from your organization tab in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise by an admin. And here, if we needed to do some additional editing, we could change these color pickers, but you can see that I have a accessibility contrast marker of 4.7 that passes. It's not very high like what we see with our white text, which is very high, but it still passes. And so I could say that this is an accessible app based on its color themes. And if needed, we do support custom CSS in our header and in our theming. It's not within all of our templates, but again, you could find that information within our matrix if that's something that you needed in your app. Lastly, I'll go ahead and move it over. I'll send it back to Ian, who will talk about our language switcher component and configuring a multilingual app with instant apps.
Thanks, Krista. So yeah, we're going to talk through some considerations for creating a multilingual app. And I think just to mix it up, I'm going to go demo first. Playing loose with the rules today. So this is a map that shows hiking trails in Santa Monica. It has two layers. There's the actual trail routes, and then there's trail heads. Echoing my concept of removing some things, I used aggregation at this scale to limit the number of features that are shown. So you can see they're all grouped through the aggregation. If I turn it off, it just doesn't look as nice. So aggregation reduces the visual clutter. The next thing that we wanted to look at is the pop-ups. So for this multilingual map, there's a couple of ways in which, because of the way the data is structured, I chose to facilitate the translation. So for the trailheads, let's take a look at that. So the trailheads had a mix of essentially amenities. So there would be a field for parking, and the value would be yes or no. There was fields for restroom. So I basically created a list of variables for each field that I wanted to check for. And then I created a list that essentially decodes the yes or the Y to the actual field name so that when I create my pop-up, it's more human readable. And then to handle the Spanish, since honestly I wasn't sure like if it was Y or N in English, would it be Y or S in Spanish? I just went with like the actual translation of the strings. So I have a list of variables for each value that could be in the list and the Spanish translation of that. And then I basically do a check using this locale, the locale property from the get environment function, which I skipped over. But basically this checks the browser locale, and based on the locale, whether it's English or not, it passes in the appropriate list of text. So that's at the top. This get environment, it's an arcade function that it does a lot of things, but I'm using it to capture the locale from the browser. So just to show what it would look like. So this is the same map. I've forced the locale to Spanish, and you can see a lot of the information in the UI translates, but also if I click on one of these lines, now the text is in Spanish. So essentially what Arcade is doing is it's telling the map where to get the information to show in the pop-up based on the locale. The second one, the trails, the goal with communicating for that layer was a little bit different. It had a lot of coded value domains. So in that example, the solution was more persisting the translations within the actual layer. So it uses that same get environment function to capture the locale. And then in this case, it just constructs a sentence if it's English using English words and the information from the English fields that are stored in this layer. And if it's Spanish, it essentially constructs a very similar sentence using Spanish and the Spanish data that's stored in the layer. So how does that play out in terms of the applications? what we can do is, like in this case, I want to make a trail locator application. So I'm going to go to Instant Apps, and I'm going to choose Nearby because that's the one that will help find the nearest thing to my location. And all the tags and text and everything came over from the web map that I fully documented and appropriately leveraged my item page earlier. So again, I'm in the configuration. This should look fairly familiar. I'm in Express mode. I've got my map set. I think the things that I want to do in this case are normally I would show like the removal of all these locators because they're not super useful. We saw that earlier. I can constrain the search to focus within this map extent. But I think what I want to do, actually it looks like my settings I want are in full setup. So I want to add some additional information to the results. So on the Nearby section, if I go to the map results location, I can do a few more configuration options there. Let's see, what do I want to do? Actually, it was share. I want to share the individual results. So that'll allow someone to find a trail or a trailhead and share that specific location with their friends. I want to add directions. So I'm going to search the settings. I'm going to find show directions. I'm going to turn show directions on. And I want to add an elevation profile link so that as they're exploring this map, they can determine if the trail is something that they actually want to tackle for that day. And then lastly, the thing that's most relevant for us in this context is the language switcher. So I'm going to enable the language switcher. That adds a new button to the UI. Right now it's just English. I can configure that by adding a new language. In this case, I'll choose Spanish. You can add many languages. I think the most that I'm aware of someone having is 10 for like the city of New York. A lot of the cases are simple like this, where it's just bilingual. And then I'm going to open up the translation configuration. And you can see on the one side, there's all the English text that's been baked into the application. So you can translate that information here, and on the right hand side, it will persist all the information when the app loads in Spanish. The key thing here to make this a little bit easier that I want to point out is we have a translation assistant. It's currently in beta. It uses Microsoft Azure translation service. So I can click translate. It will use that service to generate the translations. And you can see they've popped in from the service. What we usually recommend is that you export that and then have a native language speaker review it, because machine translation is not always perfect. And then when I go back to my application, I can see now that there's Spanish as well. So I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to publish. Oh, I've enabled the routing service to give directions, so it's asking me to authorize the use of the premium content. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then it's going to let me launch, and we'll just test it out real quick. So you can see everything's in English here. If I zoom into this area, I search, I get my results, they're in English. If I switch to Spanish, I get the same results in Spanish. I can generate an elevation profile. So my friends that I'm going to meet up will have some sense for how much it's going to be, how taxing it might be. And then I can also copy the results and then send those to a friend, and then it'll take them directly to that location. At least it's supposed to. I may have found a bug. So that's how you quickly set up a bilingual map. Just to real quickly go back, there's a couple of considerations that I wanted to touch on in my slides. So there's 3 types of text. There's the Esri defined text. So that's what we have as far as tooltips. Those are going to show up on any button that we have. There's the app authored text. So that's every string that me as the app author would put into the configuration experience that we looked at. So anything that's like intro panel, results-based information, anything that you write into that is app author text. And then there's the map and data. And as we saw through my demo, the way that we handle the first 2 types of text can be done via the language switcher. The map and data text is something that we have to make the choice to configure via Arcade. We saw the translation assistant. We support every Esri supported language, which is, I can't remember, it's over 40. And then for some users, they've asked us to provide support for languages that we don't support. So if they have a local mandate to show a language that we don't support, they can set it up to do that. And it will translate any of the text that's app authored, but not Esri authored. We looked at the get environment function. There's a blog that I would recommend if you want to figure out how to do this. It walks you through that process. So the translation assistant is in beta, so it's only available in online. Currently, it's free to use. I'm not sure what the status will be once it's out of beta. There are 2 considerations for that. If you go back to your office and you try to go through this workflow and you don't see the translation assistant, your admin may have disabled AI assistance, or they may have disabled, or they may have blocked beta apps and app capabilities. So if you don't see that option, one of those 2 things is probably enabled. And with that, I think we will open it up for questions. Or I can go through this 5-minute checklist. Was there any questions? Oh, sure.
Add additional fonts.
Can you add additional fonts? At this time, we don't support adding additional fonts.
So you can't use a branded font for your company or whatnot.
Not that I'm aware of. I can give you my card and we can follow up on that one offline.
Yeah, it might
There
be
may
possible
a way
with CSS.
in the front.
Oh, no.
Which ones are good for editing?
For editing, we would use Manager and I can show that to you after this. We can look at Manager and Sidebar as well are 2 of our templates that support editing. It just depends on if you kind of want editing in the form of attribute editing or feature editing. But Manager and Sidebar. Yeah,
If you need general purpose editing, Sidebar is the better one. If it's more of like triaging information that's been collected in the field, then Manager is better for that one.
But if you have time at the booth, I can show you. Yeah. Any other questions? Great. If you have them, we'll be at the Instant App booth. Thanks for taking the time today. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, and
That's it.
thank you.